Hello everyone, we have formed our strip of metal into a circle. Now we need to cut the overlapping ends and solder. Before we can do that, we need to make the bangle rounder. Put your bangle on a round bracelet mandrel and tap gently with a nylon mallet to even out the shape. Flip it over and repeat on the other side. Next, we are going to flatten the bangle. To flatten your workpiece, place it on a steel block or an anvil and hammer on both sides with a rawhide mallet. Go back and forth between the mandrel and the anvil. Where the two ends overlap, mark the spot where you cut the excess metal. You'll use a set square and a scriber to trace a line where you'll saw the bangle. And you saw carefully through both layers of metal at the same time. Okay, all done. We're ready for the next step. Use your hand file cut number 2 to file both ends of the bangle in preparation for soldering. And you're going to file up to your scribed line. I'm going to speed up the video here. And you bring the filed ends together to check that you have a tight and flush seam. Next, you are going to anneal and pickle your bangle before soldering. Apply flux on both sides of the seam and dry it lightly with the torch. We are going to use hard solder. You place pillions of solder on the seam, on one side of the seam. To solder, you are going to heat up the entire piece first to prevent the metal from shifting or the seam from opening. And I'm going to speed the video again. Once you've warmed up the entire piece, you can concentrate on the seam to get the solder to flow. And when you're done, check the back of the seam to make sure the solder has gone all the way through it. Next, you need to pickle, and after pickling, we need to adjust the shape again. To make the bangle perfectly round, go back to the bracelet mandrel. Use the nylon side of a double-ended mallet to strike the edge of the bangle. The nylon mallet won't distort the edge. Don't forget to flip the bangle over and place the bangle on an anvil or steel block and flatten it with a rawhide mallet. Repeat this process several times, alternating between the anvil and the mandrel until the bangle is perfectly round and flat. To clean the seam, use a needle file or a hand file to remove excess solder on the seam if necessary. Use a half round file to remove the excess solder on the seam inside the bangle as well. Remember to file gently The point is to remove the excess solder, not to remove metal. We want to avoid making the metal thinner. Next, with a half-round file, file the inside edge of the bangle to bevel it slightly so it is more comfortable to wear. Now take the planishing hammer, place the bangle on a steel block, use the flat side of the planishing hammer, hammering gently to even out the hammer marks and to smooth out the surface of the metal. Work on both sides of your piece. This will also slightly compress and work hard on the metal, so the bangle will be more rigid after this and also more wearable. All done. One more thing to check. To make sure the bangle is still perfectly round, place it again on the round bracelet mandrel. With the planishing hammer, strike the edge of the bangle perpendicular to the edge to remove any gaps between the inside edge of the bangle and the mandrel. To check that the inside edge of the bangle is touching the mandrel all around, lift the mandrel and look underneath to see if there are any gaps, and make some adjustments if necessary. Don't forget to flip the bangle to keep the shape symmetrical on both sides. You use the flat side of the planishing hammer and hammer gently so as not to change the shape of the bangle. Now let's work on the outer edge of the bangle. The bangle must be perfectly round and its width must be consistent all around. Place your bangle on a steel block, take your dividers, placing one leg inside the bangle and trace a line along the outer edge. This is what the line looks like. And then you will file along the line lightly and send to the finest grit of sandpaper. For this project, you can leave the hammer texture on and polish it lightly, or you can remove the hammer marks by filing the surface. You can also polish the bangle and have a textured finish. Regardless of the option you choose, both edges should be highly polished. Thanks for watching.